Welcome to Chez Garbage. I'm so glad you could make it tonight. And you will be too once you see the absolute feast we have in store, the likes of which I've never seen before in all my years of trash roasting. Summer 2025 might well be the greatest trash harvest in anime industry history. From all-time classics we never thought would see a comeback, to all of your favorite modern trash flavors, to a main course so insane you had to sign a waiver before you even came in here, which was pretty difficult with you being unconscious and all, but we bought a recording of you saying yes to a phone scammer once, and our lawyer says that's good enough. That'd be a real good place to segue into some kind of privacy sponsorship if we had one. But this menu is brought to you by Sword of Convallaria, a classically styled free-to-play fantasy tactics JRPG with a delectable Delicious in Dungeon collab launching August 29th. Adventure through the sumptuous pixel art world of Iria and break bread with the Laios squad as they set out to explore a mysterious dungeon full of dangerously nutritious monsters in search of their missing companions. Strengthen your bonds over shared meals as you delve closer to the labyrinth's buried secrets and unlock a ton of great rewards along the way, including abundant summon resources just for logging in and questing, new avatars and furniture, plus, of course, some brand new characters. Marcel and Fallon can both be recruited through limited time banners, with each one guaranteed after 100 pulls in the weeks where they're featured. To get you started, the first 10 pulls 50% off, which is pretty cool. They're both great girls. But you know what's really cool? They're giving away Best Girl Senshi totally free to anyone who completes his limited time quest. That collab begins August 29th, but you don't have to wait. Click my link in the doobly-doo to dive into the nostalgic world of Sword of Convallaria today and get ready for a grand adventure with your favorite monster gourmands. Now to start you trash gourmands off, we've got a lovely selection of Trashpetizers for your consideration. Rom-com lovers will love dealing with the Mikadono sisters is a breeze, a wholesomely hilarious harem thing that follows the orphan son of a famous quintuple threat actress as he's adopted by one of her old colleagues and sent off to a fancy private school for elite prodigies, despite having no particular talent of his own. This is initially quite the shock to his new class/roommates, the titular sisters, who are geniuses in shogi, martial arts, and acting respectively, and look down on anyone who's not a prodigy as essentially subhuman. But they slowly come to appreciate just how much Yu's support helps them push their own talents further. And they immediately come to appreciate what a cutie patootie he is. Yu may not have any of his mom's talents, but he got all of her good looks, and the little shit knows it. With a smile and a wink, he's got the kung fu tsundere eaten out of his hand before she's even willing to eat food off the plates that he serves her, and the resistance of the rest breaks down soon thereafter. I honestly love this little short king even more than his gremlin girlfriends, despite the fact that they are some of the best waifus we've seen in, not years, because 100 Girlfriends was like this year, but on that level. And I think that's a sign of a top-tier harem anime. Protag should always be best boy, or best girl if it's a reverse harem. Otherwise, how does it make sense that all the other best girls/boys are after them? Haruhi from Oran High School Host Club is both, and come to think of it, Mikadono sisters' witty humor, absurdly affluent setting, and tomboy on femboy dynamic remind me quite a lot of the second greatest harem anime ever made. In fact, it may well be a contender in its own right for the top 10 harem anime of all time casserole that I'm contractually obligated to cook up at some point in my career. So why is it just a Trashpetizer? Why not give it a golden dumpster or 5? Because at the end of the day, it's just a whole lot sweeter than it is spicy. I'm giving Mikadono sisters 4 novelty trash baskets full of cinnamon rolls. The f You mean a cinnamon roll's not an appetizer? You're eating garbage! For the isekai enjoyers, we also have Ugly Mug Epic Fighter, a story about a mysterious parallel fantasy world that anyone can visit by performing a certain ritual. Our hero, Shigeru, is a butt-ugly ex-salesman with a heart of gold who lost his job due to a false train molesting allegation and jumps at the chance to escape his miserable, unemployed existence into that RPG paradise, using an exploit to minimize his looks in exchange for maximum stats, which he further enhances to literally godlike levels with essentially a binding vow that if he ever has sex, he'll die. Which really sounds like setup for an edgy incel lone wolf revenge fantasy thing, but don't judge a book by its cover. Ugly Mug Epic Fighter is the exact opposite of that. The show immediately plops Shigeru into a party full of people who are all escaping from their own tragic pasts back on Earth, and most of the story is spent unpacking and dealing with their various baggage and the trauma of other isekai travelers whose paths happen to cross theirs. Though some of those hurt people are prone to hurting people and do need to be stopped. Shigeru makes it his mission as a god to help his new friends and all the other good people they meet finally get what they deserve after our shitty world denied it to them for so long. But he doesn't want to hurt anyone's self-confidence by doing everything for him, so he's got to use his OP powers all stealthy-like on the down low and let them take credit, Detective Conan style. It's a hilarious, heartfelt, genuinely beautiful story, at least on a script level. Visually, the art style's an acquired taste, let's say, and the animation only occasionally takes advantage of those cartoony proportions when it's animated at all. It's also not all that trashy, but I do feel like I did it pretty dirty in the intro to my last pop-up cafe, so let's give it 2 baskets of rolls. What's that? You're craving something spicier? Can't just wait for your damn meal? Fine. We do have one more I can't believe it's not isekai Trashpetizer if that's what you really want, but I must warn you, it is one of those f***ing things. Fantasy world, there's a hero, the hero's got a party, the secretly OP support guy's kind of harshing his whole hero harem vibe, and he's not obviously useful, so the hero fires that guy, and he's immediately scooped up by an S-rank adventurer. Which is the name of this show, Scooped Up by an S-rank adventurer. That's how generic we're talking here, but generic doesn't necessarily mean bad. Unlike so many other f***ing things, Scooped Up actually takes its time introducing its protagonist, Lloyd, and explaining how he got so secretly OP under the brutal tutelage of his magic master and adopted mom / adopted Onesan, Merlin. So he doesn't just pop up out of nowhere with the biggest dick in the Adventurers Guild to crush everything with his OP skills like an isekai without the isekai. He's a real character with real ties to the world and a backstory that informs his motivations and stuff, and the party he gets scooped up into is a balanced mix of guys and girls, all of whom are decently nice and likable with, I assume, backstories we'll learn about eventually. So it's not just a very unstealthy stealth harem like most of these f***ing things, though it is still absolutely full of stuff like this. And, I mean, Protag does introduce himself to his new party by curing their friend's sister of irreversible magic cancer that no other healer could even, start to figure out how to fix. So it is absolutely the Gary Stu wish fulfillment bullshit you were expecting from the title and key art, but it's Gary Stu bullshit that does the bare minimum to be an actual story with actual characters, and that's worth an awful lot in these parts. Like at least one trash basket of garlic bread. Still not spicy enough for you? Allow me to make you regret saying that with our first entree of the evening. Welcome to the Outcasts restaurant. Yet another one of those f***ing things with a twist this time. As the title suggests, rather than starting his own party with blackjack and hookers when the hero kicks him out, Dennis, the secretly OP protag-kun, decides to open a restaurant for other adventurers who can then come in and tell him stories of their adventures that make him want to go down into the dungeon and show off how secretly OP he is, instead of him doing that because he got a quest from the guild to do it.
Daring today, aren't we?
Okay, sass aside, there is actually a lot of potential in a story set in the social hub of your typical adventuring town rather than a guild or the dungeon. You can do interesting episodic vignettes a la Bartender, but, you know, with more action for the bros, and maybe a bit of Sam and Diane romance behind the bar. You know, the more I think about it, the more that sounds like a real chill, cozy time. So why didn't I just make this a Trashpetizer too? Because I haven't told you about the child slave that Dennis buys yet, or the Raven to show up in episode 2. Those bits kinda uncozy the whole situation. Don't get me wrong, edgy dark fantasy bullshit definitely has its place in anime, but that place is obviously not smack dab in the middle of chill slice of life food porn. It's like biting into a Reese cup and finding mushed up ghost peppers where the peanut butter ought to be. And I'm giving this show the dumpster that the guy who pitched ghost pepper Reese's to Hershey lives in now. But now that I've taught you that valuable lesson, before we can get to more new stuff, tonight's menu has quite a few returning favorites we really ought to talk about. Starting with season 2 of the modern Shota battle classic, I was reincarnated as the 7th prince so I can take my time perfecting my magical ability. No, I did not mean shonen. I know exactly what I said. This new season sees Lloyd seeking to further strengthen his spellcasting by learning an entire new discipline, divine magic. But it won't be quite so simple as copying Qigong breathing techniques. He'll first need to win the approval of a heavenly patron by working diligently at his local church for many, oh, never mind, he just teleported to heaven and beat the fuck out of an angel until he gave him powers. That's my goat right there. Floating next to Lloyd, I mean. The little demon guy, Grim, love him. And he's in rare form this season, with the aforementioned pervy idol-stalking otaku angel serving as his co-mascot and Mineta-esque punching bag. The new episode's humor is on point across the board, and the battles are more intense and engaging than ever before. The arcane fire in the 5 magic school dumpsters I gave it last time is still burning bright. Almost as bright as the bottomless void in Rent-A-Girlfriend's trash can is dark and full of screams. Though season 4 is at least working toward a pretty big moment as we speak. No, not romantic closure. Are you stupid? What show do you think you're watching? I'm talking about... Yeah, that's this season. The next time I overuse that joke, it's gonna be animated. Anyway, I already said what the rating is. It hasn't changed since last time, and every second I spend talking about this show just makes me wish that thing from the Tim Robinson Dog Door sketch was really real so the monsters on the world could finally grant me sweet relief.
He must have flipped my wife 8 times! And it really bothered me.
So we're gonna talk about my dress-up darling now, so I can stop wishing so fervently for a one-way trip beyond the veil. And boy howdy, the ongoing adventures of Gojo and Marin sure do make me feel better fast. It's such a beautiful, uplifting, character-rich love story steeped in well-researched passion for cosplay and traditional Japanese arts, which it clearly sees as intertwined. Season 2's only made those aspects better while drilling even deeper into what makes its leads tick and what draws them to each other. There are few more compelling love stories in this entire medium, and there are no more compelling titties. Yeah, everything I just said about the loving craftsmanship behind the story and characters, multiply that tenfold and you're still not even close to the immaculate opie artistry on display in every frame of this thing. And unlike so many undercultured anime productions, equal care has been given to the other side of the argument, if you catch my meaning. Prison School Principal would love this show. Any man of culture would, and so should any woman of culture, since Gojo's such a catch and all the girls are both kinds of fleshed out. It is a rare work of simultaneous trash and art that transcends the limits of either category. An anime I can truly recommend to anyone. And I'm giving it a divine trash can filled with the soggy tissues of El Cantare himself. For years now, annoying people have been saying you could never make panty and stocking with garter belt in current year. And until very recently, they have unfortunately been technically correct, though they do fundamentally misunderstand the reason you cannot make panty and stocking in current year, which had nothing to do with woke and everything to do with one of the most glorious slow-motion train wrecks to ever grace the anime industry. But now that the shambling corpse of Studio Gainax has finally mercifully been double-tapped, rights for the series have reverted to its creators at Studio Trigger, who have proven definitively that you can totally make new panty and stocking in current year. And what's more, you can make it even raunchier and less PC than ever. Remember when they called woke PC? Panty and stocking's that old. Come to think of it, so's the Fast and the Furious movie that new panty and stocking so faithfully recreates in the medium of cum, which leads me to believe that Hiroyuki Imaishi and his pals have been kicking ideas for this sequel around for a very long time indeed, and all that prep work has really paid off this season with even tighter, more conceptual episodes than ever before. The Jack Kirby tribute being a particular highlight, and a large new cast of recurring characters who nicely complement the established comedic dynamic of Heaven's Laziest Sluts and their comrades' walking Catholic priest joke and not a choir boy but he'll do. In particular, I think bringing the stuffy demon twins Scanty and Kneesocks onto the team as friendly rivals is an inspired choice, since it allows them to fill their role as snooty, stuck-up foils to the Anarchy Sisters without turning every episode they're in into yet another Team Rocket plot. Also, their new four-way transformation sequence is hot as fuck, and I refuse to apologize for saying it. Not that I have to anymore, because Panty and Stocking is now finally, officially, equal opportunity horny. And as great as new characters like Gunsmith Bitch and Super Guy Jin are, Polyester and Polyurethane are easily the standouts of the season, acting as annoying little iPad kid foils to both their angelic older cousins and their new demonic housekeepers, while simultaneously creating room for the show to explore male friendships with Brief and Garterbelt and do a little world building with its distinctive God is a real flesh and blood Dommy Mommy cosmology. It's basically the perfect sequel and easily worth 5 golden dumpsters. If that's not enough transforming twunk for you Ike-men enjoyers out there, though, I've got some very good news, followed by a bit of bad news. Cute High Earth Defense Club's back for a 4th season, subtitled Haikara, with a whole new cast of Taisho-era magical boys dramatically stripping all their clothes off to fight evil aliens. The bad news is, you can't fucking watch it anywhere, at least not anywhere legal. Crunchyroll, I guess, just didn't bother to pick it up even though they had the past seasons, so I'm pretty sure I'm not legally allowed to give it a rating. Luckily, you can still find plenty of buff naked anime dudes in Grand Blue Dreaming Season 2, the college diving club anime about a club full of buff bros not going to college or diving because they're too busy drinking themselves naked, which takes like 3 beers, simultaneously trying to get laid and cock-block each other, drinking more to commiserate their loneliness, drinking even more in celebration of how legendarily drunk they are right now, passing out for a bit, and having a little drink to sober up. Also, the main guy really wants to fuck his cousin, much to the annoyance of his other cousin, who also really wants to fuck his cousin.
Hey, what you trying to say to me?
If you're looking for a rowdy body sitcom to watch with the bros, you won't find much better in anime or elsewhere, and the new season is more of the same. I give Grand Blue Dreaming a mountain of beer cans next to a beachside bonfire. Of all the anime I didn't expect to come back this season, though, the one I expected the least was Assassin's Pride, the very anime that inspired me to open Chez Garbage in the first place, which is back in spirit through Private Tutor to the Duke's Daughter. The story of an OP wizard who gets roped into teaching a magic aristocrat's magically challenged underage daughter how to magic, and then once she learns how to magic, it turns out she's even better at magicking than he is, and he ends up being a teacher at her school where she falls in love with him, and so do all of her underage friends, much to the chagrin of his hot-headed badass childhood friend who's also in love with him, and yeah, it's literally just beat for beat, bar for bar the entire plot of Assassin's Pride, minus the assassin part, and the half-vampire part, and the surreal semi-post-apocalyptic gaslamp fantasy setting part. So, everything that made Assassin's Pride unique or interesting. But it still delivers the same core escapist fantasy of being a predator with institutional access to children. And as a trade-off for all the personality it loses, Private Tutor does have somewhat more fleshed out characters who go through slightly more gradual and organic feeling arcs. It takes a couple episodes to cure Protag's little kitten of her can't-do magic disease instead of cramming that entire arc into one episode, so it's definitely far and away a much better written and paced anime than the one it's ripping off, but that only makes it less entertaining. Sure, for the target audience of Discord moderators, it still has the bare essentials, and you could even argue it does those things better, but what it doesn't have is Kufa Vampire, the secret half-vampire assassin turned sketchy school teacher who talks like a literal actual Discord mod in English and everything.
My little lady.
It is but a pale imitation of the OG Harry Potter groomer anime, and to quote a great scholar,
If asked would I rather have a copy or the original, I would choose the original, naturally!
I give it one generic horny fantasy dumpster because that's all it deserves. If you're hankering for fantasy trash with some real originality, sorry, but we do have the Shy Hero and the Assassin Princesses, which shakes up the usual gamelit dynamic of a super OP protag and his party full of hot chicks who want to bang him with a super duper OP protag and a party full of hot chicks who want to kill him and bang him. Unfortunately for them, he's a little too invincible to do the first thing too, and too much of an anxiety-riddled turbo virgin to stay conscious through the second thing, or the foreplay to the second thing, or talking about the second thing, or just making eye contact with a woman, though that does buy the girls plenty of time to plot their next unsuccessful assassination attempt behind his unconscious back, and the need to constantly create those plotting sessions gives them plenty of reasons to get naked in front of him. It's a real synergistic, ecchi ecosystem they've built for this anime, very tightly engineered, which feels a bit wasted on a pack of girls who look like background extras from a One Piece filler episode, but at least the core joke of him constantly no-selling their murder attempts without even realizing it is pretty funny. Then again, it is the only joke, so it better be. I give it one basket of vendor trash next to a torch on the wall. In comparison, New Saga takes its whole hero on a quest to beat the Demon King thing a lot more seriously, and in doing so actually puts a pretty interesting twist on it. Kyle, the hero in question, did not reach a happy ending his first time through the generic JRPG quest that was thrust upon him when the demon armies invaded his homeland and killed his whole family. He did ultimately get revenge, but at what cost? Most of the people he knows and loves. That cost. Turns out the Demon King had a little spell cooking while they were fighting though. One that would send him back in time and fuse his past and present souls to effectively double his magical ability. But when it activates, it ends up taking Kyle back instead to 3 years before the invasion started. The first thing he does with this incredible New Game Plus do-over opportunity is make a beeline for the hidden bonus dungeon with infinite money and the best sword in the game in it. Then he sets out to make a name for himself as a hero and win the renown he needs to start preparing humanity for the war to come. He's joined in this journey by childhood friends Horny Meathead and Twin Tails Tsundere, plus the elf he got married to in the other timeline where the Tsundere got all dead and shit, who he just kind of bumps into and then he magic doxes her in the middle of the street with like just saying her true name in front of everyone, just out of nowhere, and that makes her want to follow him around forever. So good pickup line, I guess. Also, the sword talks. She's a 1,000-year-old lolly who's kind of sassy and arrogant, basically fills the mascot role. You've played this JRPG before, this mid-budget AA JRPG that gives you the Dragon Quest you're craving and maybe a little something extra without going too crazy with any of it. You will play this JRPG again, too, many times, because you love this JRPG. And this anime, despite not actually being a JRPG, is one of the better iterations of that JRPG. The party has really fun personalities that all balance each other out nicely. The story has some interesting shakeups as their efforts to change the timeline end up turning old friends into enemies, and maybe vice versa. So you don't lose the grimdark edge of the intro completely, even though it is buried under a whole lot of wholesome, good road trip vibes. But the number one reason that I would play the out of New Saga if it were a game is the soundtrack. This chaotic jumble of jazz that adds energy and urgency to every gag and action scene, even when the animation looks like this. Any connoisseur worth his salty takes on Persona knows the soundtrack is the most essential quality of any AA JRPG, and in light of that, I have no choice but to award New Saga no less than 4 baskets of vendor trash. Now, I do understand some of you are getting a little sick of all the RPG fantasy stuff lately, which is why we also stock the classics. Bring out the Shounen Trash. No, not the Trash Shounen. That's peak. Are you stupid? The Shounen Trash. You know, the extra edgy Blue Exorcist knockoff with the blood-based power system and the badass Gyaru brawler chick who can totally kill me whenever she wants, please. Togen Anki, that's it. Yeah, that's the one, and it's... Guess I just described basically all the important parts. Yeah, if you want to watch something somewhere between Jujutsu Kaisen and Blue Exorcist with really cool fights and the pro tags basically Chainsaw Man, only made out of guns instead of chainsaws, and the guns are made out of blood, of course you do! That sounds awesome. Also, there's titties in it, you say? Titties that could kill me? Sign my inner 13-year-old the up. 3 trash cans of blood and razor blades. Yuri's back on the menu this season, boys and girls, and not just one, but 2 of them with very different flavors. Bad Girl follows Yu Yutani, a meek little wallflower with a hopeless crush on the school's baddest babe, disciplinary committee president Atori Mizutori. She's got a whole lot of competition for that crush, including many of their classmates, several mythical creatures, and a literal, actual cult that worships Atori-sama as a god. But Yu's got a plan to beat them all out. All she's got to do is become a bad enough girl that Senpai has no choice but to punish her, and therefore notice her. A brilliant plan, elegant in its simplicity, except for one small hitch. Yu Yutani does not have a bad bone in her body and is in fact incapable of breaking any law besides all the ones about stalking. Her idea of delinquent behavior is riding tandem on a 1-seat bike on private property where no one can stop her, and ruining her classmates' litter-picking drive by picking up all the trash around town before anyone else can, so all of them will be really unsatisfied. So if Atori really did have a thing for delinquents, she would be in big trouble, or I guess a total lack of trouble. Luckily, what Atori actually has a thing for is adorable morons, and boy howdy did she ever hit the jackpot with this puppy. That's a very intentional choice of words, by the way.
マジでドン引きなんですが。だってユウちゃんワンちゃんみたいで可愛いんだもん。
Turns out, though, that new dog's in pretty high demand, too, from both Yu's childhood friend Suzu, who's been fostering the dumb little thing for quite a while now and isn't quite sure if she's ready to give it up to a new forever home just yet, and Ruri Ruriha, the school's resident beauty YouTuber slash narcissist, who is so utterly shaken by the revelation that Yu doesn't really know or care who she is that she ends up essentially negging herself into her own stalkerish obsession. As you may have gathered by now, Bad Girl's one of those rom-coms where basically everyone's either stupid or clinically insane or both, and that's probably my second favorite kind of rom-com, though it is also the rom-com where the rom part never really goes anywhere, and I'm less of a fan of those. But it is still a goofy good time. I'm giving it one of that death trap lesbian bar with no fire exits from The Simpsons. Now, the lack of ladies smooching ladies in that last one will no doubt be a letdown for many of you, but luckily Summer's other girls' love story more than makes up for it by being my first favorite kind of rom-com. That's right, it's a real, honest to Haruhi Yuri harem. There's no freaking way I'll be your lover. Unless Watanare, for short, tells the tale of a shy, awkward gamer girl named Renako, whose efforts to reinvent herself for high school and finally find a friend group to call her own unwittingly land her at the center of a great big sapphic cuddle puddle. Well, near the center. The group really orbits around Mai Otsuka, a stunningly beautiful and fabulously rich part-time model who's the envy of all the school. But when Mai falls head over heels for Renako, she drags all three satellites down that gravity well with her, and chaos ensues. Mai wants to be lovers, but Renako doesn't need that kind of drama while she's still figuring out this whole having friends thing. Plus, she's totally, definitely, absolutely, positively, without a shred of doubt, not into girls. Nope. Definitely not. Nuh-uh. No way. So they agree to go back and forth, trying out both, hanging out as besties when Mai has her hair up, and then when she lets it down. For anyone who's watched Bad Girl, Rock is a Lady's Modesty, the two most recent Gundams, or especially Bocchi the Rock, and wondered where all the smooches were at, the answer is here. All of the smooches are right here, and it ain't just those two doing the smooching. My sadistic childhood friend Satsuki has some very complicated feelings about that whole relationship, which she decides to work through by blackmailing Renako into dating her for a couple weeks. And even though Renako is, again, just to be clear, completely, 100%, totally, absolutely, unquestionably straight, there is something about Ajisai, the group's resident Ara One-san, that she can't get out of her head. Then you have Kaho, the highly excitable, self-professed Mai fangirl who is just Renako's friend right now and not really a romantic rival, because it would be weird if the entire friend group started crushing and going after each other all at the same time. And that, I think, is what really elevates Watanare. Despite how sort of contrived the friends versus lovers battle feels and how huge the personalities on display are, also the characterization's quite exaggerated, it is at its core a thoroughly naturalistic love story. Everyone's feelings toward everyone else are messy, confusing, and occasionally self-contradictory in very believable ways. They all want different things, or at least think they do, and in pushing for them end up creating friction and seriously hurting each other in ways that they have to deal with the consequences of. There's real verisimilitude in the drama. It doesn't just feel like the author inserting conflict for conflict's sake. And even though one relationship is obviously the main attraction, all of them get their time in the spotlight to develop at a steady, satisfying pace. Every harem anime should aspire to this level of writing. Watanare gets 3 lesbian death traps. Now it's time for the main course, and my, oh my, what a course it is. In all my years talking trash, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff, but until now, I never even imagined that a Japanese TV station would one day air an anime audio only. The anime in question is Nukitashi, and if YouTube would let me show you even a second of its characters just walking down the street, you'd immediately understand why. Patrons already do. The reason I can't show you anything is because every single character in this anime has to f*** every other character all the time. Like, legally, they are required to do so by the so-called pervert law that rules over their experimental island community. But not everyone from that island is down with getting down. Our heroes in the anti-copulation front want to put an end to the law so that people can be free once again to only bone people they love, or people of the same gender, or tablecun, depending what they're into. It's a big tent coalition, this resistance movement. Tent in your pants, I mean. With each member, from the literally dick-headed virgin Yaru to the island's most prolific female gooner, having their own noble reasons to fight the sex Nazis. And our hero, Junosuke Tachibana, carries the heaviest burden of them all. I mean, he really has it hard, cursed as he is with an unreasonably huge cock. Long ago, the other children would pull his pants down, point, and laugh. You freak! What are you? A horse? I've never felt so seen. And that deeply relatable trauma has rendered Jun utterly unwilling to copulate with anyone who doesn't really love him, and vice versa. Until then, he's gonna be jorking it, thank you very much, though that phrase really doesn't do it justice. For Tachibana-kun is a proper pocket vag virtuoso, a maestro of masturbation who builds his own artisanal sex toys from scratch, some of which are secret James Bond gadgets. And that's not even the most out-of-pocket way they smuggle shit.
美少女フィギュアがお尻から抜けなくなった時も結局病院で摘出してもらったアナル弱者で
This show is a riot, man. You never know what's coming next. Besides all the characters, I mean. That said, it is also, just so we're all on the same page here, hardcore non-con free use fetish porn where the bad guys are all
Faves!
So, if that is something you're sensitive to, absolutely do not watch this anime. Seriously, hide your waifus, hide your background extras, hide your pro tags too, because it's happening to everyone up in here. The school has this thing called the guillotine. I don't even think I can describe it on YouTube, let alone show it. But the sheer unrestrained hentai excess of that all does also allow the plot to go in some spectacularly buck wild directions that I also probably can't show or describe, so you'll just have to trust me. You see him knife fighting with that reinforced dildo? That's not even the third craziest thing about that specific fight scene. This is one of those anime that just puts you in a perpetual state of disbelief that they went there. And that is definitely the main thing that I would recommend it for, that just unpredictable roller coaster ride. The characters are also pretty fun and well-rounded, but the plot's not exactly the most realistic revolution ever put to television. OPSEC basically begins and ends with Protag putting these stupid goggles on while the waifus just run around doing terrorism with no masks on in their school uniforms directly in front of the bad guys, and that just never comes back to bite them. None of their plans make a lick of sense, and neither does the ideology of the regime, come to think of it. So, I don't think it's quite on the trash pantheon level of Shimonetta gushing over magical girls or interspecies reviewers, but it comes pretty damn close. And as trash fires go, I don't know if I've ever seen a hotter one, which is why I'm giving Nukitashi 4 atomic golden dumpsters. A meal that delicious deserves a delectable dessert to chase it down, and we've got an exquisitely sweet piece of girl trash in stock that is absolutely perfect for that. Betrothed to My Sister's Ex is a decadently Disney-esque fairy tale romance that follows Marie, the young daughter of a bankrupt bully of a baron who escapes her life of Cinderella-esque squalor when her sister Anastasia dies en route to get engaged, and she's married off to the tall, dark, handsome count who was to be her husband as a replacement, which turns out to be quite the lucky break for Count Kairos, who had accidentally proposed to the wrong sister on account of being a bit of a dumbass. The moment he met her, he immediately fell for Mari's bookish, inquisitive charms, plus the fact she's the only white woman he's ever talked to who wasn't racist. But years of abuse have rendered her incapable of accepting that love, so she's gotta spend some time warming up to the idea that she's beautiful and really deserves it first. All while being doted on by a badass ninja maid, a foppish genius of a French chef, her stereotypical Indian mother-in-law who just got done deciding that they will be best friends instead of mortal enemies, and a whole diverse found family of mansion staff besides. Plus, of course, the sexy idiot who's gonna be her husband, who's basically the final boss of wife guys. Make no mistake, betrothed to my sister's ex panders just as hard as any I got kicked out of the hero's party for walking with a limp, but now I'm crushing monsters with my monster dong anime, just to different sensibilities. The sort of sensibilities that dream of meeting a sensitive yet masculine handsome idiot who will do anything for you, especially that because he gets you and you get him. In fact, you're the only one who gets him, even more so than his slightly less handsome, slightly more idiot best friend who he's willing to have a gorgeously animated sword fight with just to defend your honor, but only after you've clarified that you both understand you could totally defend your honor by yourself if you really wanted to, but he wants to do it for you with full respect for your autonomy as a woman. You know, just the most shameless Lady Gooner shit you've ever seen this side of AO3 and Tumblr. And it panders with style. I'm not making that Disney comparison lightly. The music, the cinematic use of lighting, when this show wants to get your heart pounding and the waterworks flowing, it pulls out all the stops and delivers. And I'm giving it 4 frilly decorative wastebaskets full of used tissues and crumpled Ben & Jerry's tubs. What now? More complaints? Too shoujo for you? You were hoping for some cake for dessert? Fine. Look, I'm not supposed to be doing this. The FDA will be all the way up my ass if they catch me serving anything other than trash. But between you and me, if you want cake, you should be watching Yuri Rocks, the powerfully uplifting and impressively educational slice of life moe comedy about the exciting world of mineralogy. But you'll probably be more interested in the geology if you catch my meaning, like a certain pair of it's the FDA, or possibly the hack comedy police. Given the timing, it's impossible to tell. Tara, we gotta cheese it. You're on your own. Try not to get shot in the kidneys. I've got dibs.